Welcome to Microsoft Ignite, and thank you for attending today's session, Insider Risk Beware. I'm Liz Willits, today's moderator, and I'm joined by my colleagues Jenny, Aaron, and Iram today from our Communication Compliance, Insider Risk Management, and Advanced eDiscovery product groups. We're super excited to show you how Microsoft 365, and specifically our Manage and Investigate Risk compliance stack, can help you secure and support your organization from the inside out. Today, we'll introduce you to Fabricam, and more specifically, their security team that's faced with new challenges in the hybrid work environment. But with our compliance solutions, we'll show you how they're able to support digital communications, detect abnormal behavior, and investigate and collect data related to risky activities. So with that, let's dive right in. So let's meet Fabricam. Fabricam is a multinational manufacturing and retail company with tens of thousands of employees, kind of a perfect blend of frontline workers and information workers, which really makes the current hybrid environment challenging for Fabricam security. In fact, many of our customers, both large and small, national, multinational, have expressed similar challenges as they've undergone rapid digital transformation in the past year. Fabricam, just like every other organization, wants to ensure the safety and resiliency of their business, but the shift to modern collaboration and hybrid work has really been, disorienting for Fabricam employees. They're having to navigate this blended environment of work and home, and it's also presented a challenge for Fabricam to support participation in a positive company culture across a distributed workforce. So Fabricam really knows that they need to provide the right tools for their employees to do their best work in this hybrid environment. But at the same time, they really need to manage risk, protect company assets. They do that by detecting potential data leakage, insider threat, insider trading, and they also need to protect employee well-being by flagging things like threatening language, sharing of adult content, or even something as severe as harassment. But what we do know is that risks are everywhere in any organization, both internal and external, malicious, careless. But one risk that's increasingly top of mind for companies and security teams are insider risks. At the same time, identifying fraudulent, inappropriate, illegal, non-compliant behavior has really become, even more challenging as companies have moved into this hybrid model. So today, we're super excited to play out a scenario where Fabricam is able to detect these types of risks using tools and support from Microsoft 365. So let's ping our friend Jenny on the Fabricam security team and get started. Hey Jenny, can you tell us how Fabricam is able to support digital communications with communication compliance?
Absolutely, Liz, and it's great to see you. My name is Jenny, and I'm a program manager with the Communication Compliance team. So communication compliance can support digital communications for organizations across all sizes, locations, and industries in three important ways. 1, communication compliance helps detect and remediate communication risks. 2, communication compliance ensures a safe hybrid work environment by protecting collaboration tools like Teams and Outlook. And finally, we take a privacy-first approach to customer data.
That sounds like a really great tool. And I guess, my first question is, how does Fabricam even know where to begin? What risks might they be exposed to? What should they be configuring? We'd love to learn a little bit more there.
That's a great question. And for many companies new to communication compliance, we offer Day Zero Insights, which can help provide a snapshot of an organization's communication landscape on Day Zero. By leveraging the existing Compliance Center's data classification service, Day Zero Insights provides an aggregated number of matches per classification type with none of the insights containing personable user identification. When I say classification type, I'm referring to things like machine learning classifiers, sensitive information types, and even custom keyword dictionaries like Fabricam's Project Magnesium. Let's take a look at the slide really quickly. Over here, we can see that the profanity classifier has found 31 messages containing profanity and 9 messages containing threat in Fabricam's communication. With these insights, Fabricam can create the right policies in order to address these existing concerns. So now let's flash forward to some of the policies that Fabricam have created, and I'm going to assume the role of an investigator.
Hang on a second, Jenny. Just a quick question here. Remind me what privileges the investigator role has. I know we've mentioned the solution has role-based access control built in. This investigator, they've been specifically scoped to these policies by an administrator, right?
Absolutely right, and that's a great call out, Liz. As an investigator, my responsibilities are only to view policy violations and take action on them. This division of roles, or role-based access control, is one way that communication compliance preserves end-user privacy. At this point, I also want to call out that all features we demonstrate today upholds communication compliance's promise to end-user privacy with other built-in functions like pseudonymization and explicit opt-in of monitored users. So, without further ado, let's dive deeper into how a policy can capture our Fabricam employee Isaiah's activity. Let's take a look at the offensive or threatening language. By diving into the policies, we can see that there are actually two policy items that were caught. Both are Teams messages, and the first one we see is an image that was caught by our adult, racy, or gory image models. By clicking the collapsible menu, let's take a look at the actual image content. Now, before I step forward, I just want to say that there could be disturbing images ahead, so viewer discretion is advised. Now let's go ahead and check out the image, and it looks like it's actually a nude sculpture that Isaiah sent to his work's communication channels. Now maybe Fabricam doesn't want such content circulating in their communication, so what I can do as an investigator is remove this message from Teams. And when I start removing this message from Teams, future users will no longer be able to see this image in their work communications, and once it's complete, let's step over to Isaiah's Teams portal, where we can see that he gets a notification saying that his message has been blocked. Now, if Isaiah is curious, he can click the ellipses to learn more, but this is the end-to-end flow for how we can remove offensive content from Teams.
I can definitely see, I can imagine how continuing to see an offensive language like that could really be triggering for someone. So I think that's really an awesome feature to both protect employee well-being and also, company assets. And really just love all the unique integrations that we have with Microsoft Teams. I know that's been a big hub for modern collaboration in this hybrid work environment.
You're absolutely right. And I think you touch on a great point when you say that in a hybrid work environment, Teams is becoming a new form of communication. And that's the case for multinational companies like Fabricam and any work environment. This is why we also work to be inclusive of different languages as well. So let's take a look at the next policy item that we saw in communication compliance. Over here, we actually see a message that was sent in Japanese, and unfortunately, I won't be able to understand this message. But thanks to our handy-dandy translation tab, I can actually translate this message into the native language of my laptop, which in this case is English. So now that I see this message, I realize maybe Isaiah didn't send the nicest message to his coworker, and I need to give him a slap on the wrist. I can start by notifying Isaiah of his inappropriate behavior. And over here, I know that I'm sending a message to Isaiah. I'm going to leverage a notice template, which allows me to pre-populate important fields, and all I have to do is personalize the message before I send it to Isaiah in just a couple clicks. So at this point, I want to call out that we have seen a lot of features around code of conduct violations like offensive content or harassing messages. But what about the regulatory compliance side of things? I'm also excited to show you some of the policy matches that we see in an insider's policy, and this is pertaining to insider trading. So stepping over to some of our existing items, we see a Teams message that is currently selected. Now we have multiple attachments underneath it that we will begin investigating. The first attachment that we see is actually a Word document that is attached in the form of a modern attachment in Teams. Now on surface level, this message doesn't seem too bad, right? It's just a normal Word document. However, thanks to Communication Compliance's keyword highlighting in the plain text view, we can actually see that the word confidential is used in the Word document, which zeroes in my attention to the fact that Isaiah is sending a confidential document to another coworker. This prompts me to continue investigating and take a look at the second attachment, which is another image, and it's Isaiah sending a message in it saying, "This stock is going to be very bullish. You should start buying." Now, my suspicions are that insider trading is underfoot. But before I can really make a decision, let's take a look at the top-level team's message. Thanks to the Conversation tab, I not only see the policy violation, which is highlighted in red, but I also see that Isaiah has been repeatedly telling his coworker about this stock and to start buying it. And finally, I have my full picture that insider trading is underfoot, and I need to escalate to Fabricam's legal department. This is when I'm going to escalate for investigation. I'm going to give a name to the new advanced eDiscovery case that will be created, and I'll leave a note for my legal partner so that he or she is ready to take on the case and continue looking into Isaiah's activity. Now I'm going to wrap things up a little bit by just saying all of these features can provide value to companies like Fabricam, as well as any organization that is interested in protecting their digital communication landscape.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. You've definitely detected some concerning language in communication compliance that I think we'll definitely want the Fabricam security team to take action on. But I'd love to investigate a little bit further before we open a case. So Aaron, can you tell me how insider risk management can help further detect abnormal behavior and really help Fabricam mitigate their exposure to insider risks?
Sure, Liz, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Erin and I'm a program manager for Microsoft 365 Insider Risk Management. And as Liz mentioned, I'm going to talk you through how Fabricam can use the Insider Risk Management solution to detect and take action on insider risks at their organization. So before we jump into a quick demo, I do want to give a quick overview of what the Insider Risk Management solution is. So what it allows organizations to do is reason over a breadth of user and activity signal from across their organization, surface possible risky insider activity, and then allow the organizations to take action on those risks using integrated workflows. So for Fabricam, they can find Insider Risk Management solution in Microsoft 365 Compliance Center. And once they're in the solution, we're excited to introduce enhancements that make it easier for organizations to get started. So we now show a clear list of recommended actions to get set up, as well as transparency around whether those actions are complete already or if they're still pending. So for Fabricam, we see that there's a couple of actions that are still open for them. One of them is scanning for potential insider risk. So we'll go ahead and click into this and run the scan. And what this allows Fabricam to do is reason over their Microsoft 365 tenant audit log data and surface potentially insider risk activity that's already taken place at their organization. And the best part is that they can do this before they've even set up their first policy. So once the scan is complete, a report is generated and it summarizes aggregated and anonymized insights about potential insider risk activity that's taken place. And if we click into the details, we see some additional insights about possible data leak activity that was detected, as well as a recommendation about the type of policy that Fabricam should set up to address these observed risks. So we can see there's a recommendation to set up a general data leaks policy. So we'll go ahead and create this policy because we know Fabricam is concerned about data leaks related to their Project Magnesium. So once we do this, we'll get popped into the policy wizard. And in the interest of time, we won't walk through the full wizard, but I do want to highlight some enhancements that we've made for policy triggers. So configuring a trigger for your policy is a key part of setting up the policy, and it allows you to define the type of event that, when detected, will activate the policy to start reasoning over a user's activity, assigning risk scores, and then creating alerts as appropriate. So for Fabricam, in their data leak policy, they can choose between using an existing DLP policy as their trigger event, or they can select the native exfiltration activity trigger. And this is where we're very excited to introduce additional capabilities for them to fine-tune these triggers to make them work for the unique needs of their organization. So Fabricam can simply select the types of activity that they're interested in, and then now they can select the thresholds for those activities. So they can choose between default out-of-box recommended thresholds or customize those thresholds to really make them work for their organization. So they can select the specific number of events for their policy trigger and even the type of content in those events. So they can, for example, select 20 events for copying files to USB that contain sensitive information types. And when that's detected for a user, that policy will activate policy scoring for that user's activity and assign risk scores and create alerts.
Let me just make sure I got that correctly. So basically, we know our customers have unique needs. And in this case, Fabricam is really able to fine-tune their policies to meet their own risk thresholds. Say something like copying more than 60 files a day. But really, I see the value as, helping the security team reduce the noise and really prioritize some of the riskier activities. Does that sound right?
Absolutely. That's exactly right, Liz. We know that insider risk is not a one-size-fits-all approach for organizations. So this additional customization and fine-tuning capabilities can really help organizations make these policies work for them. So once the policy is complete, alerts will start to be created and they'll be listed in the alerts page. And so you can see here there's a number of alerts that have been detected for Fabricam. The first thing I'll call out is that you'll notice that all of the usernames are anonymized. And anonymization of usernames is on by default in the solution to help organizations meet privacy requirements and also to remove bias for analysts and investigators when they're reviewing alert activity. So we'll click into the first alert on this page. And we're excited to introduce enhancements to the alert review experience to help organizations accelerate that time to action on their insider risks by making it easier for their teams to review alerts. Because we hear from customers the importance of understanding the context around the alert. So for example, what was that triggering event that took place for the user that prompted the policy to start assigning risk scores? And also, what was the riskiest activity in the alert? And so we've highlighted these in the alert summary. And then as the analyst or investigator dives deeper into their review in the Activity Explorer and starts looking at those line-by-line event details, we've also introduced new sorting by risk score and new filtering to help analysts and investigators really focus in on the most interesting and concerning activity for their review. So for this specific alert, we see that there's a number of activities related to that highly confidential Project Magnesium. So we'll go ahead and confirm the alert and create a case. So once a case is created, there's a number of features available to help teams drive investigation and take action on insider risks. And if we click into the first case, one of those features that I want to highlight is Content Explorer. So with the appropriate permissions with Content Explorer, you can review the actual content related to the activity in the alert. So for example, Fabricam can review that Project Magnesium file that was downloaded from SharePoint Online to assess the impact on if that file were to get leaked and make a decision on what next steps might be needed. With some insider risk cases, the most egregious cases, you might actually need to escalate the case to the legal team for a legal investigation. So we make this easy from right within a case. With the click of a button, you can escalate the insider risk case as well as the content related to the case to advanced eDiscovery so that the legal team can have all of the content that they need to take over the legal response and investigation. So finally, we know that many of our customers use Microsoft Sentinel as their SIEM solution to provide a single pane of glass to their security and compliance teams. So we're very excited to announce new integration features with Sentinel to make this easier and more efficient for teams. So customers can now set up a native data connector in Microsoft Sentinel to import their insider risk management alerts into their Sentinel workspace so that their teams can review and analyze the insider risk alert in a broader organizational context. And then along with this data connector, we're excited to also introduce new content to allow for this analysis and enrichment, such as workbooks, hunting queries, and analytics rules. So this is a little bit about how insider risk management can help Fabricam detect and take action on their insider risks. I'm going to hand it back to Liz.
Thanks, Erin. You've definitely highlighted some alarming behavior in insider risk management. And in addition to the concerning language we saw in communication compliance, I think it's definitely time for Fabricam to investigate further. So Iram, can you tell us how advanced eDiscovery can support Fabricam in investigating and collecting data related to this case?
Absolutely. Teams is a very popular workload right now, so we're getting a lot of customers asking about how to discover content there. So why don't I show you? Why don't we jump into a demo and I'll show you how we're able to help Fabricam with Teams content. So I opened up a case in Advanced eDiscovery. Now remember, this case was escalated from Insider Risk Management. And so once I'm in Advanced eDiscovery, if the case has been transferred, you'll notice that we hold on to the case name for continuity. The case also is going to contain the person, the custodian in this case, and any content that was pulled up from Insider Risk Management. But once I open the case, I want to show you how we're able to show some of the team's content. In the first spot we would do that is in the custodian. Now, as we said, if this was an Insider Risk Management escalation, the custodian would already be selected, but I just want to show you some of the cool things you can do by validating first a user. So we type in Isaiah's name in the custodian box. And then once that gets validated, we quickly see a list of all of the team sites that Isaiah is a member of. And this could be super helpful for a discovery team, right? This is what allows them to start looking at which of these sites are the ones they are specifically looking for. Say that maybe one of the sites was part of the lead, or it lets them call really obvious sites that wouldn't contain relevant content. And again, back to what we were saying earlier, the more we can be precise upstream, the better and more optimized the whole flow is. The other thing customers can do and Fabricam can do is they can look at the activity of the user. So here, think of this as kind of a scoped down view of the audit log, where you can see all of the activities that Isaiah has been up to. And although some of this content was showed in Insider Risk Management, this gives you a bit more context in case there are things like collusion that you're looking for with other folks, or if there's been a repetitive pattern, a history.
Awesome, this is great. I think a follow-up question is, as we think about the fact that more and more companies like Fabricam are moving from on-prem to the cloud, it's super important to be able to search assets on the cloud. How does Advanced eDiscovery support communications and documents that are sitting in the cloud?
Yeah, great question. Ever since Teams released and the whole notion of what we call cloud attachments came along, it has been challenging for eDiscovery professionals. Recently, we announced the ability to collect cloud attachments. And so the screen that we're looking at right now is I'm already inside of a review set. So let's say that with the Isaiah case, we'd already put their content on hold. We collected some content and we added it to a review set, and now we're looking at it. We're reviewing that content. On the right, you'll see that there's the actual conversation. And in that conversation, there's a link to a document. In the left, you see the grid, and what we did is we're actually collecting that document from SharePoint, in this case, where it was stored, and included it right in line during review, so that you don't have to do post-collection collections. It's all kind of included in one place. Now, we want to take this time to announce an enhancement to that feature of cloud attachments. There's two announcements that we're going to make. The first is we also now have the ability to discover the version as shared. And we're also releasing a public beta for historical versions. And what these do is, for the discovery of the items as shared, the challenge that our customers run into is in the legacy attachment world, when we would send a message and attach a document, the document would actually be embedded inside of that message. So there really was never an instance where the message was around, but the attachment was not. But now with links, we're sending actually a link to a live document that is changing, basically on a moment-by-moment basis. And so if this message that Isaiah had sent with a link was sent, let's say, back in January, and we're investigating him now in November, there's a high likelihood that that document has changed since the time he shared it. And so with this new feature, customers are going to be able to go into our sister solution, which is the retention policy, and they create a new policy that says if a document is shared, automatically preserve the version of that document that was shared. And again, the reason that's important is we're basically mimicking that legacy workflow where you're able to make sure that every time the message is sent with a link, that we're going to be able to hold on to that version of the document that was shared. This should save customers a significant amount of time and money. Most of the customers that we spoke to would over-preserve to basically stay away and mitigate from this scenario. And that could be really burdensome. That could be very, very costly. So this precision kind of gives you the best of both worlds. The workflow of the legacy, always being able to see that attachment as it was shared, but with a modern collaboration of letting that document also change over time. The second announcement is very similar, but in this case, if you didn't set a retention policy and that document, let's say, was changed several times, now you'll be able to run searches across all of the versions of a document. It is complicated, with the cloud sort of evolving these documents and the content all of the time. Searching for the truth under a layer of versions can be very difficult. So this feature will allow you to do that. You'll be able to not just search the most recent version, but all versions of a document. So back to the case with Isaiah, you'll notice that we pulled up a document here that he had access to, and it looks like it was kind of a draft version of an announcement of Fabricam being acquired by Contoso. And this is some of the very sensitive information that he shared externally. So with advanced eDiscovery, the discovery team at Fabricam should be able to get all the content that they need and close this case with Isaiah.
Thanks, Iram. It's been so amazing to see, how our compliance stack has helped Fabricam address insider risks in their organization to really better protect their most valuable assets, both their people and their corporate data. So I think from this example, we really saw how Fabricam was able to be better equipped to deal with insider risk by using tools like Microsoft 365 E5 compliance. We saw with Jenny's demo how the security team was able to better support digital communications and their employee experience with communication compliance. We saw with Aaron, how the security team was able to detect abnormal and risky behavior with insider risk management. And then finally, we saw with Iram, how investigations or legal teams can really leverage a solution like this to investigate and collect data with advanced eDiscovery. And so with Microsoft 365 compliance, you can better protect your users, your customers, and your data. If you'd like to learn more about any of these compliance solutions, we certainly encourage you to check out some of our latest blog posts we just released earlier today at Ignite for communication compliance, insider risk management, and advanced eDiscovery. We also invite you to experience E5 compliance for yourself with a trial of M365 E5 or by heading to Microsoft 365 Compliance Center to get started today. Thank you for listening.